we're talking about, this is a video in a series that we're doing with Mark and with Stuart here. And it's about a mission that was designed and brought into being by our yogi master, who was called George King, His Eminence Sir George King. And he was a master manipulator of energy, and he was called first to Holston Down, which is just,
can I just say
where we live.
Can we start recording again, because that's not quite right, love. He didn't instigate it and start it. He was carrying out orders from the cosmic masters.
That's true. Yeah,
who planned the whole thing for mankind to use to give us the energy to put into the world in these times because of all the bad things that are happening.
That's true. I don't think we need to start again. It's just good to clarify that. Thank you.
Okay.
And yes, so Stuart and I live in North Devon, which is just below Holston Down, which is the highest point on Exmoor and near to where we live. And yes, there's a lot to say about Holston Down. It's a very beautiful place to go as far as natural energies go. It's right above the sea. It's has a beautiful view. You can, if you go to the top, you can look at 360 degrees. You can see over to Wales on a good day. You can look down to Dartmoor on a good day and see one of the other mountains which has been charged by George King in what he called Operation Starlight, which is Yes Tor. And there is another mountain close to us in the West Country, which is Brown Willie, which is down in Cornwall on Bodmin Moor. And we also go on pilgrimages to Brown Willie on the 23rd of November every year. And these pilgrimages are unusual. Some of them do involve a bit of a walk, but they're mainly focused, as Stuart just said, on generating energy through prayer to help mankind in these dark times.
And it's worth mentioning, like I said I mentioned earlier, that George King worked for the solar hierarchy and the cosmic hierarchy of this solar system, who have been watching over us for many thousands of centuries. And they could see that what we're experiencing now are going to be dark times, and to help us in all the ways they could, they invested their energy into charging these mountains up with energy for our use, so that we would have the sources of power to send into our world to raise the vibration and take us out of the darkness that we have begun to experience. Well, it's been much more obvious the last couple of years, I would say, than it was before, probably because lots of the things that were hidden are now being seen for what they are, for those with eyes to see.
That's right. So Holston Down, which was the first mountain that he was asked to charge, was charged on the 23rd of July, 1958 at midnight. And he was called to come down to Devon, but he didn't actually know. He knew that there was going to be something very important that happened, but he didn't know exactly what. And he was guided to go to this high place. And then, yes, he had some very interesting happenings, which we can also discuss.
And I'll say that he did write a small book called Jesus Comes Again, which is a bit of a clue about what happened that evening. And I would say that throughout his mission to Earth, he was a bit like how can I put it, a bit like a special agent, which he was. And he was given bits of information that he needed to have as he needed to have them, probably be thinking sort of between the lines, so that those who were opposed to what he was doing wouldn't get too much of a heads up about what was going on. And I think they had to play their cards close to their chests, as it were, to make these missions succeed. I don't know what you guys think about that, but that's how I see it.
That's possibly part of it. I think the other was the karma. The human race really didn't deserve this kind of intervention. So that someone in an ordinary earth body, he was kind of pushed to kind of work certain things out for himself. I think that's part of it too, to transmute karma. In order for that, allow them to actually do more. And just to be clear, I don't know if we mentioned this, George King was used as a channel for these energies to be put into these different mountains. And there are 19, I believe, 19. He was a channel for 18 of the 19. And he had to climb these mountains. Speaking of karma, in some pretty not pretty nasty winter conditions, ill-equipped. So, speaking of karma, that really seems to be what that was all about.
That's right. Yes, to back up what you're saying, this is the book which he wrote, which is the Ethereal Society Temple Degree study course. And in here, there's a chapter on Operation Starlight, and with regards to karma, he responds this: why was it necessary? This question: why was it necessary to put spiritual energies into these mountains? And his answer is: throughout the ages, man has put grave karmic limitations upon himself, especially after he destroyed Lemuria and Atlantis. When Lemuria fell, the karmic law demanded that an ionospheric belt be put around the Earth, and this was greatly intensified after the fall of Atlantis. Since then, man has had to make a far greater effort to contact the higher powers and to reach upwards into the realms of inspiration. Operation Starlight provided a source of easily contactable spiritual energies man would otherwise not have had access to. And as Mark says, the mountains were given for the benefit of mankind, but it was karmically necessary for somebody in an earth physical body, in this case it was George King, to climb these mountains and to act as a channel for the initial charge of energy to be placed into them. And his eminence formed, he says, the essential karmic link between the cosmic masters and this earth. And just going back to what Stuart said, this Operation Starlight is part of the cosmic plan for the enlightenment and salvation of mankind, which was devised by the cosmic masters. Now, you might say, well, that all sounds a bit far-fetched to have these space people, these cosmic masters, the solar hierarchy, to be involved so intimately in our affairs. And how come we don't even know about them? Well, we don't know about them because of our poor karma, because we destroyed civilizations and because
who's in charge in the world today. And we can see simply, if we've been aware of what's been going on the last couple of years, how all the media is controlled. And just going back a fraction, there was an address from George King that was played at the Sunday service a couple of weeks ago. I think it might have been in the States. And he gave a talk about the karma of mankind. And he said that the only reason that he and his team came to Earth to help us is because of the damaging effect our karma was having on the solar system, which is a sobering thought. And he said, if the Earth with us on it could be towed away from the influence of any other planet, then him and his team would have had to leave straight away, because we did not deserve to have that intervention. And the only reason it happened is because of the danger to the rest of the planets in the solar system.
That really is a sobering thought. I mean, it ultimately we're only being helped because of the effect our negative karma has on the rest of the positive karma in this solar system.
Mm.
And a lot of that, likely had to do with our atomic experimentation. And then there were the Van Allen belts, apparently, to keep that radiation from going out into the rest of the solar system and from going out into space. And they were talked about through Dr. King's contacts years before they actually discovered those belts. The scientists on Earth discovered those belts.
That's right. They were called, I think, by the Theosophical Society, the ring pass knot, weren't they? Which was put there also to stop us from having a negative effect, and also to stop us benefiting from all the energy from the sun, which we could have been benefiting from if we had been behaving ourselves. And to give an idea of just how important this task was, George King says Operation Starlight, the charging of these mountains all around the world, is the greatest single metaphysical task ever undertaken on Earth in this, her present lifetime. That was the case, certainly when Operation Starlight was going on. Since then,
that was the Master Aetherius who said that.
Yes, the Master Aetherius did say that. You're right, he did.
Through George King.
Yes, through George King. Thank you for clarifying. Stuart's got a good attention to detail. And just to go through all these different mountains for people who are interested, in Great Britain, we've got Holston Down, Brown Willie, Ben Hope, which is up in Scotland, which was charged in the middle of the winter. And in fact, from the house that we live in, which is where Mary King, George King's mother, lived, he borrowed her camper van and drove from here up to Ben Hope. Craig and Lecken, Old Man Coniston, which is in the Lake District, Penny Fan, which is in South Wales, Carned Llewellyn, which is in North Wales, Kinder Scout, which is in the Peak District, and yes, Tor, which is in Devon. So those are the 9 English mountains. So, we're incredibly unfortunate in England to have all these mountains. And I know my son, before he was 18 or 19, had been to all the English mountains. I actually still haven't been visited all of them yet. Stuart and I went up Craig and Lecken when we were in Scotland a couple of years ago. And in the US, which is where Mark is, there is old Mount Baldy in Southern California, which Mark's been up lots of times. We've also been up there, but not up to the top. And Mount Talbot in Northern California, Mount Adams in New Hampshire, which we talked about, and Castle Peak in Colorado. And then in Australia, for people down under, there is Mount Kosciuszko and Mount Ramshead, which are fairly close to each other. And New Zealand, Mount Wakefield, which is quite a climb. And George King and one of his chief disciples at the time, Keith Robertson, climbed that on Christmas Eve and actually got stuck at the top there. And there was a rescue team that was sent out. They spent the night on the mountain, but they did manage to come down for Christmas. And Switzerland, Madriga flew, and the last mountain to be charged was the Eagle's Nest, Nid d'Aigle, which is in on the side of Mont Blanc and France. And the mission ended, so it started on the 23rd of July 1958 and ended on the August the 23rd again in 1961. And the whole of Operation Starlight took 3 years and 1 month. And although we can look back on it and say, oh gosh, all those mountains were charged, he didn't know that it was going to take 3 years and 1 month as it was going along, because he was being directed and told where to go as and when the Cosmic Masters probably thought it was the right timing for him to be in those different areas.
And at the time, he had very little funds, and it was really a shoestring budget. And it was he didn't have a lot of cooperators or helpers at the time. And like I said, a lot of these mountains were charged right in the middle of the winter. You know, which Mount Adams, for instance, has some of the worst weather in the world, and he went up there in wintertime, which really is just madness, really. I mean, if you're going to pick time to go up, climb Mount Adams, it wouldn't be in the winter. And, you know, I stayed at the Madison Hut several times, and that was just buried in snow. I mean, the entire hut, which is probably, I don't know, at least 15, 20 feet high, probably 20.
And that's quite a high mountain, isn't it?
It's not as high as Mount Baldy. Mount Baldy is about 10,000 feet. Mount Adams is around 5,000 feet. The mountains on the East Coast are older, so they're not as high as the mountains on the West Coast. But still, it's a significant climb. I mean, you know, we head up right from the bottom, and it is as a significant climb, or even more of a significant climb than Mount Baldy, because Mount Baldy you can drive to something like 6,000 feet and only hike the last 4,000 or so feet.
And you could go in a ski lift, which was actually closed when we went. And
you can also take the ski lift another part of the way. Which I don't, but you can. Most people do.
Yeah.
One thing that intrigues me, living near Holston Down, and beside the most accessible holy mountain in the world, is the karmic aspect of it. You know, the idea that some people have to work a lot harder to climb up mountains than others. I mean, all of the British mountains are all much more accessible than the Americans. And like I say, Holston Down, it's about for a slow walk, or maybe 10 minutes to walk to the top from the car park.
That's an easy one, right?
So
it's almost like a hill.
Absolutely.
It is the easiest. It is a hill.
Well, it's 1,146 foot, I think, isn't it? As I remember rightly. Yeah.
In England, Mark, we have different definitions of mountains to you, because ours are smaller. So anything over 1,000 foot in England, in the UK, is a mountain, which you would think of being as a hill, as you say.
Yeah, but you know, having lived in Los Angeles, those Hollywood Hills, which I started to take advantage of partway through my residence there on a bicycle, because the climbing is such good exercise, they really are small mountains. I mean, even though I would ride up to the Hollywood sign quite a bit, and that was probably 1,700 feet.
It's big.
above sea level.
That's
So
bigger than
we call
Holston
it a
Down.
hill, but that's pretty significant. That's a big piece of, area. It really is a small mountain.
That's right.
But even though
And-
we call them hills here, it is a small mountain.
So shall we talk about what goes on to invoke the energies?
Well, I think that's the thing. I think people need to understand the significance of prayer and actually the science of prayer, which is actually an invocation, right? We invoke this energy through certain practices, through certain prayers. And we were given the practice of Dr. King was actually met by Jesus on July 23rd, 1958 on Holston Down. So that mountain was charged by Jesus through Dr. King. But then was it 4 days later, July 27, that Jesus delivered the first blessing of the 12 blessings, which were delivered on 12 consecutive Sundays, starting on, I think it was July 27th, 1958. And that's really the main practice that we use on those mountains, which is an invocation of spiritual energy. So prayer to us is not exactly like prayer is, I think, to the average person. We are praying, but we see it more as an invocation of energy, and we're not praying like this. We're praying like this because there's chakras in the palms of the hands. So I think it's really important for people to realize the importance of this energy, and that prayer is a way of invoking this energy and sending it out, because I think what we're getting at here is a lot of the problems, or probably all of the problems we're suffering now, is because there's not enough of this energy being invoked and sent out into the world on a regular basis by enough people.
Yeah, and can I say, I think to me, the most important part of it was the teaching about dynamic prayer, because that is the part that I could feel the effect, from, like you saying a prayer, like, as the master said, reading your shopping list, or saying it with all of your heart and soul, putting all of your feeling into it, makes it far more dynamic. And it seems like the message goes out far more clearly and has more power when it's done like that. And I think that technique can be used for any prayer, even prayers that we make up ourselves, even prayers for healing and help for other people. The mountains can be used when we invoke the energy the right way, with the right intention, I would say, then we can use that energy to help mankind in general, or just people who need that help. I think the main thing is that the more we spread that energy into the world, then the more we are raising the vibration. And this sort of comes on to another part that we talk about at the moment, which is a little extract from a lecture he gave, which is called The Spiritual Energy Crisis. And one of the little things he said there is absolutely amazingly stunning when you think about it. He said that over the centuries, this is a bit paraphrasing really, he said, had we, mankind, over the centuries sent out enough love energy, spiritual energy, raised the vibration enough, as all the great masters have told us to do, then we would never have heard of Napoleon or Hitler or any other murderous dictator, and who have caused all the wars in the world, all the suffering. We could have avoided all of that had we done the right things. And so by hearing that now, we can all get on the case and start doing, what we need to do to make the world a better place.
That's right. Maybe we could just give a demonstration of one of the blessings, blessed are they who love, in a dynamic way so that people can understand. And by the way, you don't have to have any special qualifications to come and pray on the mountains. Anyone with a pure heart and a pure intention who comes to these places.
As long as you're mankind.
That's right.
Yes.
But I want to add to that, the more that you do pray and the more that you do practice like this, the more energy you will send out. So it's something that really can be developed.
It is. So we can maybe show now just how we do that, all three of us together, because the more people you have doing this, the more powerful it becomes. And
okay,
also,
well, do you want to just do the beginning practice, the opening practice first, just to tell people?
Yeah, we could, because that's another. Well, do you want to talk us through that one, or I could, whichever.
Okay.
So yes,
so if we're standing up, say we're standing at the top of a mountain, for instance, we would stand with our hands by our sides, spine straight. We've probably had a few deep breaths on the way up the mountain, so that all goes to help to raise the energy that we have. And we close our eyes and we think down to the Mother Earth, and we visualize a violet flame from the Mother Earth coming up through and around us, rising up through our body, coming up right through all of our physical body and aura, going up, visualize it climbing up above the head, and as high up as we can visualize above us, coming to a point. And then we just visualize ourselves in this energy, which is a protection and a purification energy that is a preliminary to sending out the blessings. And then we detach from that visualization and we imagine a brilliant scintillating beam of light coming down from the universal supply above into the top of the head, penetrating the brain, cleansing every atom in our brain and flowing down into our body, out through our hands and out through the heart center, which is a few inches in front of the breastbone in the aura. And then we just visualize, we hold the hands up and visualize those three beams of light flowing out from us in giant streams. And then Catherine will give us a sample of a blessing.
Okay, you can join in, or you can just send out white light, visualize white light going out through the palms. So in this case, we're going to, our focus of our intention is they who love. Blessed are they who love, for they are the disciples of God.
And then we keep visualizing that energy flowing through us out to the focal point of the blessing. And then there's a prayer.
So this is the prayer. Almighty God,
who is
the creator
of all
things.
We
pray that
your light may shine through us
now, so that
we may transmit this
unto the world. Then we relax the hands.
And when we finish, We do that, the closing mudra. This is a prayer mudra. A mudra is a hand sign. This is the closing mudra. And we also use different mudras to either draw energy to us or send energy out. We can use a mudra for blessing, or we can use a mudra for drawing energy in. Different mudras we use. And this is a way of invoking the energy. And just that little bit, I started to feel a bit of a buzz on the palms. And also, you know, we also do, we have other practices that we do to charge ourselves up, to make ourselves a better channel for these energies, because the human apparatus is set up for transmitting these energies from the chakras mainly, but also the spine, which is like an antenna. But we can enhance this through different practices, pranayama, to charge ourselves up, mantra to charge ourselves up, and also to open the chakras more. So we're doing pranayama, mantra, and prayer, and this helps to open up and activate the chakras. But prayer, with the prayer mudra especially, starts to activate the chakras here and the heart chakra too, because that's where we're visualizing these brilliant, vibrant beams of white light coming from the palms of the hands and from the heart chakra. The heart chakra is just a little bit just beneath the breastbone, just out in front of the body. And yeah, that's the science of prayer. And you know, it's interesting. I always like the Lord of the Rings series. And you know, the two wizards in there, one was a dark wizard and one was a white wizard. And but it is interesting when you depict them, when they're depicted doing an invocation, that they're putting a lot of feeling into that. There is a lot of truth in that. They're not just, you know, just like they're reading a newspaper, that, you know, that when Gandalf, or I think Saruman is the dark wizard, they put a lot of feeling and energy and effort into that. And that's what we have to do to invoke this energy.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's right. And it's one of the most potent things that we can do in these times. So, you know, all of this is actually a part of a yoga practice. It's not maybe what people would think of, but George King was a master of a self-realized master, because he could raise his kundalini. And that's we talk about that in another talk, because it's a big subject. But he did practice yoga for 8 to 10 hours a day on average for 10 years, which is what enabled him to be a knower and to be able to undertake these missions. And he was a master of mudra yoga, which the mudras, I think, come from the Tibetan yoga. And also of bhakti yoga, which is the yoga of devotion and praise. So the prayers and also the mantra are a part of bhakti yoga. And most importantly, he was a master of karma yoga, which is the yoga of service. And, you know, in these times, it's service to humanity that's needed, because we all need to give something back. It's not enough to just be a neutral at the moment, especially with what's going on. As we started to talk about, we've generated so much bad karma. We need to start. I think it was as a karmic bank account. You know, in every day, what can we do to put good energy in the karmic bank account? And going up to one of these mountains and to pray from there is going to be helping a lot of other people. And we also have the benefit of feeling good ourselves. And in fact, I would say, for me, it's actually cured me of depression, which I find very interesting, you know, to act as a channel for this energy. So it does have some pretty profound effects. So if we're feeling, as we often can at the moment, a bit disempowered, it's in England, it's the end of a long winter, we're still getting a lot of rain and it's very cold, and people can feel a bit depleted, go up on a mountain and pray. It's going to wake you up for a start, and you'll feel better for it.
Yeah, and I just say talking of karma again, what happens individually to each one of us will be determined by our karma. I mean, it's not something that is well known, because these teachings have been kept from mankind, and but everything at the end of the day is down to our karma, what happens to us. And the more love we send out, then the more we'll get back. I think it was at the end of Abbey Road album. It says, and in the end, the love you make is equal to the love you take.
The love you take is equal to the love you make.
Okay, good
The
one.
love,
Yeah.
Mark's a
and in the end, the
musician.
love you take, in other words, the love you receive is equal to the
Yes.
love you make, the love you
Mm.
send out. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
brilliant. Very brilliant.
Yeah.
Very
Yeah.
brilliant.
I love that
That
album.
is brilliant. Yeah, in fact, I did that at a friend's funeral. I did the
Mm.
music for a friend's funeral years ago, and I ended the service with that
Okay,
Mm.
because
lovely.
that's really beautiful.
It is.
Yeah.
It is. And then
And can I just say, we, mankind, we're all in charge of what goes on this planet. And we've only got to look around and see what we've made of it so far. But we're in the position where we can put it right. And it is our, well, we can leave it and just let it get worse, or we can put it right. And for all the loved ones that we have, and for all of mankind, I don't want to say it's our duty, but it's a good thing to do. Let's stand on the side of the angels, I say, and send out the power and the love.
that's right. And just to finish off, there's been after the charging of the last mountain in Operation Starlight, there was a transmission delivered from the Master Aetherius on the 27th of July 1962, which is called The Great Secret Revealed. And he made reference to this gigantic task which the Cosmic Masters had been involved with. And the Cosmic Masters, you could call them space people. That's another term, or extraterrestrial masters. They live on other planets with it. Most of the ones that we're talking about and that George King was mentioning here live within this solar system. The Master Aetherius, who gave this transmission, comes from Venus. And it says the Cosmic Masters had built a gigantic system of subterranean passages linking all the charged mountains. He stated that although each mountain has a slightly different power within it, now every one of these mountains is physically linked together by these great subterranean streams of a certain mineral, which constitutes the lifeblood of this earth. So when we pray on one mountain, we're actually tapping in to all the mountains, which is a pretty profound thing. And we do have a friend who's on the 50th anniversary of Operation Starlight, Richard Green. He actually aimed to climb all the holy mountains that George King charged on similar dates over a period of years. And he pretty much managed to do that. And so, us, when we go and pray on Holston Down, we're linked to New Hampshire, to Mount Adams, to Mount Baldy. And the Cosmic Masters want so much to help us. And in these times where we can think that there's not a lot to be hopeful about, there is, because they are watching over us. And if we take one step towards them, they'll take 2 steps towards us to help us even more.
Yeah. And this is our mission, isn't it? I
Mm.
think that people really need to realize how valuable this is, how important this energy is, and how much of a means of service to the world sending this energy out is.
Yeah,
That's right.
and how much we've been bamboozled over the years by those in charge, you know, to stop us doing this, because this is the one thing which will put an end to their silly games.
Schemes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.